Wow, we see all these people.
Oh, wow, excellent. Great.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, guys. Great to see all of you this morning.
All
I
right.
see a lot of familiar faces from our clarinet camp last summer already. Wow. Hey, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Let's go to the second screen. We got the second screen here. Oh, wow. Look at this. Jeez. Great to see everybody. Wow. Okay. Can everybody hear us okay?
Put your
I see
thumbs
thumbs up for people who can hear us. I see thumbs up on that screen. Excellent. The screens that are blacked out, that's fine too. Everybody's audio is muted for now, but the chat is open.
Yeah, write whatever you want.
Yeah, feel free to use the chat. Welcome to our first online clarinet class. We're planning to give several clarinet classes this summer online, and this is the first of those. And yeah, we're thrilled to see all of you here. We're at Sasha's house here.
Yeah, in the Cypress, Texas. And this is already working out. We have 34 people so far. I think we can get a little bit more.
Just 8 people are waiting. We need to
let middle.
In the middle. I just keep doing that. Yeah.
Still working on that Zoom thing.
Yeah,
we got a better quality. Yeah. Oh.
Congratulations to all of you for finishing your school year. I'm sure it was hard to have such an amount of change in such a short period of time, but congratulations for making it through your school. I'm sure all of you, just like Sasha and I, were really bummed out that you couldn't go to band every day once March or February or March went through.
Maybe not everybody, but
maybe not everybody. But I know we were really, I think both of us have been really affected by this, by not being able to go down to the Houston Symphony and, you know, have the outlet that we have, which is play beautiful music all day. Let's see, what do we have?
Wow,
Atlanta, yeah. Georgia. Excellent. So, but
I'm Mary from Atlanta. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
It's been rough for us not having the outlet of being able to go down and play these awesome concerts that we get to play with the Houston Symphony. It's been so many months of this, and it's hard. So we know probably a lot of you feel that same way with band, and you want to be back playing with your colleagues again. And a lot of people that we've talked to have found that it's pretty hard to motivate yourself when you don't have the outlet, like a rehearsal with your band, or a chamber music rehearsal with a group that you're playing chamber music with, or any kind of outlet. There's no concerts. So what we're trying to do is motivate ourselves, because the symphony could go back basically at any time. So we've got to be in absolutely perfect shape. If they say, okay, symphony, you're going to be back on stage at Jones Hall tomorrow. Okay, well, we've got to be able to pick this up and sound just like we did in March. So this is a class for all of you where we talk about what we've been doing just to stay in shape so that we're ready for that call when it comes. I mean, we may do some concerts in Jones Hall with no audience. In July, there's a few dates scheduled that are still waiting to be confirmed, but there'll be online concerts, possibly with the Houston Symphony in Jones Hall with no audience in July, and then possibly some concerts with small audiences. I think, what, 300 people or something?
And check it out on the HoustonSymphony.org website. Support us. Also, for those of you who did not subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do. We need to get like 30 more signatures.
30 or 40 more.
And to start,
we not signatures, but subscriptions.
Subscriptions.
And then we can start live streaming on YouTube for you guys.
Which will be better. Also, part of our classes, we already have, 45 participants. And not everybody get a chance to play. Or you can actually, we're going to make some demonstrations of what you can do. You can, since you're on mute, try it. As they say, don't try it at home. We want you to try it at home. Yeah. Try it at home and get your horn, pick it up, and demonstrate. So one of the reasons we want you to support us on YouTube, because what we're going to offer, there's many things we're going to offer with our classes, is you making short recordings and we will revise them and critique them and give you pointers of what we think you should be doing. So in that sense, what we're going to offer short private sessions.
One-on-one.
Right, but also you have to earn it and record. It's very easy to record, 5-7 minutes. We'll promise we'll listen to it individually, and then it will help us to understand your personal needs. For instance, we want you to write specific questions. We already have the list of questions. One was about how to play high C on a clarinet, and we're going to demonstrate high C. Yeah, I'll demonstrate. It's a funny thing. That particular question was because of Spohr First Clarinet Concerto, and the person was wondering why it was not consistent.
Well, the person was saying, at the beginning of my practice session, I can nail the high C. As I go through my practice session, towards the end of the session, I realize that I'm not nailing it all the time. And how do I get it where it's absolutely consistent all the time?
Well, first of all, it's okay to make mistakes sometimes. I can try to demonstrate it might not come out. So the purpose is one of the things we teach in our class, and we've been fortunately taught by our teachers, is don't try to play perfectly. Try to play correctly. And once you establish correct habits, they lead to the perfect play. So this is already a pretty important lesson if you're going to keep coming back. Now, funny you mentioned the high C exercise, not exercise, just playing high C. Why is it important? For the fact if you can play high C, that you're voicing in such a good shape, especially if it sounds good, than playing high G, which most of you never have to play higher than high G. That's the thing. If you can jump higher, then you can play the regular register. It doesn't seem so difficult, right? But personal story in Houston Symphony, 3 people waiting. Oh, Graham Tobin, all right. Who was our predecessor? Now our principal clarinet is Mark Nucci, who we're going to try to join next time. We'll see. It's
we got a big treat for you at noon. Lin Ma will be joining us at noon.
From a National Symphony Orchestra. Yeah.
Clarinet.
So who was that designed that warm-up? Was that
Dick Picard?
Dick Picard.
Yeah, Dave Peck's
still alive, played in Houston Symphony since 50s. And he hasn't been in an orchestra for 30 years, I would say.
Yeah, right.
But apparently he was known for a very short warm-up, and all he did, he played 2 notes, low E and high C.
High C.
High C. Chris, close your ears. Let me see if I can demonstrate it. Yay! Came out. All right, let's see if it was a fluke. Okay, so my teacher, David Pack, who succeeded him as a principal clarinetist and a personal friend, and I studied with him for my master's at the Rice University, demonstrated. And if you try it at home, which I really encourage you to do, you'll see it's not that easy. It's easier to get gradually to high C, but actually jumping, you really have to know exactly where that note is. And that's part of what we're going to talk more in detail about what the voicing is. It's not like playing piano, pressing the button, and you get it. You have to create the shape with your tone, and everybody has a slightly different way of doing it. That's why we provide different specific syllables that we use in our playing. And our teacher introduced and showing it that it's not just as simple as like, oh, and everything comes out. It's not that simple, right? It's like the most important lesson is playing clarinet. It's not like you talk, right? If I talk and play clarinet the way I talk, I would sound very low. If I talk and they're like, I'm sure you heard those sounds, right? That's not what we want to sound, even though we recognize some people play that way, right? So the way I talk and the way I play, those 2 different ways. The way I would play, I would think I'm probably talking more like this when I play clarinet, like Adam Sandler, Adam Sandler movies. Not that you were supposed to see them. Well, I see some people, I see Thorben has seen some of them. Some people can really right? Um,
So it's all about voicing, getting
it's
the right
about
voice.
voice. Bop, 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 all day long. Bop, bop, bop. Anyway, you can relate to that. And the idea is that the shape of we talk, we don't play the instrument the way we talk. The same with our air support, what can support speech. It's not enough to support sustained sound. So the high C, I can show the fingering I used. It's basically 1-and-1 fingering plus E flat key, right? It helps to add G sharp key if that's not enough, or even add throw tone A key if that's not enough. So you have some options. Another teaching that we produce, never be confined like to one way of playing. Whoever tells you it's like there's one way or there's one voicing, take it with a grain of salt. It used to be, I would say, more like an old school of playing, like I do it this way and you do it.
Everybody has to do it this way.
Yeah.
Or go study with that guy in the city 2 states up.
Yeah. So we don't believe in that method.
We want to hear taking all the information, try all the information, figure out what works for us. And I might use some techniques with this student and use different techniques with this student. So what we like to do is find out where you are, and your teachers do the same thing. Find out where you are and give you the information and the tools you need where you are at that moment. And I might tell one student something totally different because they've got a completely different shape inside of their mouth, or they've got, some kind of hand issue that works for that person, but it doesn't work for that person. So there's not a one size fits all. So we want to get as much information and then share that information and figure out what works best with you. And that's how we learn for ourselves. And that's what we want to offer you, is get all the information you can from around you. We noticed on the questionnaire that you filled out that a large majority, 75% of you, are working with your private teacher this summer. And that is the best place to be. If you're taking a weekly lesson with your private teacher this summer, probably on Zoom. I'm teaching some of my students in person, the ones that want to. But at least if you can get in with your, actually, can I go back to the screen just so you see that?
You want to see everybody.
No. So we want to, where was I lost my train of thought.
You have private teachers.
No. If 75% of you on the survey says that you're in with your private teacher weekly, so that's awesome. That's the best place to be. Those of you that aren't in on that, we highly recommend that. And then all we're looking to do is just provide additional motivation. During the time that we stopped playing in the hall, which is around the first week of March, I would say for the rest of March, it just was really a bummer because we had all this music down at the symphony. I mean, we were going to do Mahler 7. We were just thrilled to get to. I've been in the symphony for almost 25 years, and that's the only Mahler symphony that I haven't played with the Houston Symphony yet was Mahler 7. And just in March, seeing them cancel, a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. So, okay, I understand, but let's not lose that April Mahler 7. And time kept going, and every week we'd lose another thing. When we lost Mahler 7, it just was it's like, oh gosh, I've waited 25 years to play that with the Houston Symphony. And it was just all these, each week that got canceled, I just got more down and more down and more down. And it was really rough to motivate myself to practice. And around the middle of April, I finally said, hey, I got to kick myself out of this. This has got to stop. And so I had to come back and re-motivate myself to get back into the same practice routine. It's hard to be in the same practice routine because it's a totally different type of practice that we do now. Well, not totally, it's significantly different, not totally different. It's significantly different than the practice we did before. When we're at the symphony, we've got we start rehearsing on Tuesday or Wednesday, and the concerts start on Thursday or Friday. So and it's different music for every concert. Sometimes it's 2 different concerts of music per week. So we've got to be able to put stuff together immensely quickly, and start rehearsing on Tuesday and play the concert on Thursday or Friday night and Saturday and Sunday. So when you get out of that schedule, all of a sudden you've got all sorts of more time to even redouble your efforts with basics and foundational stuff, scales and long tones and stuff like that, which we do normally anyway. But when there's no concerts, it's like, oh, well, instead of having to rush through my long tones or scales, or maybe let them go today and I'll do them tomorrow, it's like we can have the perfect ideal setup in this sort of COVID-19 setup now. I mean, I'm basically doing my scales and long tones every single day. Now, it's okay if you take a day off from practicing, but if you're trying to motivate yourself and trying to get in a really good summer schedule, I would say don't take more than 1 day off every 7, is what I recommend. And I basically, I think I'm on about 14 or 15 days straight. I think it's been 14 or 15 days ago before I actually took a break and didn't play the clarinet for a day. And the biggest tip that worked for me, through all this, because I figured I've got to get back into that. I've got to keep my, my practicing to a very, very high level. What I would do is I'd say, okay, I'm just going to practice for 10 minutes. And
shorter years, that's a very good thing. Then even for myself, I get distracted when I practice, which is okay. See, professionals do it too. So 2 lessons you learn. It's okay if you don't have motivation. Look at us. I actually get motivation when I teach my students. Then I know I have to be in shape and I should be an example, and that motivates me to motivate you. So it's okay if you get a little bit down and you seem a little bit lost. It's okay. It's what you do that's important. And then you have a plan. And what I already like about Chris's idea, that always there's room to learn something new. The short period of time. Yeah. And I just add, before I forget, because I just had a brilliant thought and I wanted to share it with you, that your playing and your dedication, it doesn't matter when it occurs. You can practice 40 hours when the school gets back in August, or you can practice an hour a day from now until that. It's the same amount of effort that you put in. So it's like your savings account, right? So the time that you do it, eventually you have to do it. There's some books that say to do anything well, you have to spend like 10,000 hours,
40,000 hours, or 20,000 hours, I think.
It was one of those books. To do anything well. So it doesn't matter. This is your time when you can do it, when later you will not have that time. And so it's your commitment, because the things will go back. Things already coming back here in Texas. Already there are schools that will be open in July with summer bands.
At band camps?
Yeah.
Some band camps.
And some of them we're going to be participating. We're going to provide help. The all-state music will be there. And you know what? There's a lot of really good players there that they're probably going to be practiced. One thing we always recognize, we have to be really good to get to the jobs that we are and to keep those jobs. But there's also people who are better than us. And every time with the people in business, they're more hungry. All right. It's okay to see, like, you have to stay hungry. And usually the younger people who need to get there, they're hungry. So people who did not make All-State last year, and you, let's say, All-Stater, they're going to work harder than you. And that's going to be their motivation. So if not hungry, this is the first signal that, in terms of your competition, you might not be on the same page.
Right. So basically, what do you do if you're hungry and you're at home and you're hungry? I want to be awesome next year. I want to get first in All-State next year. I want to be, the top clarinetist in my band next year. What if you're hungry and you say that in your head, but you don't want to practice? Well, I don't want to practice today. That's exactly where we were. I want, when I go back to the Houston Symphony, to sound way better because I've had all this time, but I don't want to practice today. So what was my solution? My solution, which worked for me, which came from talking with one of the trumpet players in the orchestra who I played with for years and years, Bob Wall. And we were just chatting, and it was between the two of us, listen, let's just talk to each other and do our 10 minutes. So it's a two-pronged approach, having a practice buddy that you talk to about it, and then two, figuring out what you're going to do. So I would highly recommend, if you have someone who's a friend that plays the clarinet or even the trumpet or the bassoon or whatever, if you have someone that's a good friend of yours that might have aligned goals as you, or similar goals as you could have like a practice buddy that you guys communicate anyway because you're friends, but then you could put something into that friendship, like an accountability, like, and it's really what you do with your private teacher. You want to practice 7 days before you see them. You see them on, Monday, and then you want to practice 7 days before you see them again. Otherwise, why do it? So there's accountability there, but it's also good to have an accountability with a friend as well. So that's what really helped me. And, I sat down, 10 minutes of scales, and almost every single time the 10 minutes turned into more than 10 minutes. There were some other things I tried that I just throw this idea out there because it was sort of funny. In my house, I always turn all the Wi-Fi and internet off when I go to sleep at night, and I turn it back on in the morning. So basically my house, all the electricity's off at night, except the refrigerators and all that stuff. I turn all the Wi-Fi and internet off. So one day I was saying, okay, my motivation is going to be, I'm not going to turn any of the internet on the router before my scales are done, and, I don't recommend that for all you. It would probably drive your parents nuts. But I was just looking for anything. It could be, if there's like a reward system, I'm not going to do this and this before I practice, but then really keeping yourself to it. And that's where the practice buddy comes in, because your practice buddy can say, oh yeah, yesterday you said you weren't going to practice. You weren't going to, walk your dog and eat breakfast before you did 10 minutes of scales. The 10-minute thing is what's crucial here. You can always find 10 minutes. And even if you don't get through the whole scale sheet, just doing 10 minutes of scales means you've started. You leave the clarinet together on the stand, close the door to the room, and you've at least started for the day. The earlier in the day I start, the better I do, and the more I've accomplished by the end of the day. I don't know if you find that as well, but
yeah,
I like to get a string of sessions where 7, 8, 9 days in a row where I've practiced before noon. You might say 10. For me, noon is fine. My two daughters end up sleeping in pretty late during the summer, so I'm fine with noon. But you might decide you want to say 10. But in any event, try and set up a reward system. If you do a little bit, and 10 minutes is just such a small little bit, put a read on, do 10 minutes. And once you do that, you'll find yourself getting into like a snowball going down the hill. It keeps getting bigger and bigger, and you keep getting these bigger practice successes. And you look back and realize, wow, I'm really in shape now. I feel great in shape right now.
And also, what we recognize with the exercises and the specific things we're going to show you, and later we're going to show in our classes, what also is very important is to know how to execute the exercises. And then Chris is going to demonstrate a brilliant idea about playing the scales in 3 different ways. So my point is, just seeing the music, you can download it. I have one of the best warm-ups that I can demonstrate that I've learned from my teacher, David Weber, legendary pedagogue in New York. And we can post it online. If you don't know how to execute it and what you play and what you look for, which is a few dozen things, just seeing that piece of paper is not going to teach you anything. Just listening to the best clarinetist on YouTube, and everybody now is there online, and demonstrating not going to help you at all. It can motivate you, and we're going to talk about the oral concept by listening, what we like to listen to, and get motivated by listening, right? But once again, until somebody tells you how to do it, that's pointless. You're not, that's why you need a teacher. You need to know how to play.
Yeah. For example, with what Sasha was talking about, listening is such a important part of what we do. Listening and recording. We'll talk about recording later too. But for example, every day, I've chosen, and this always changes, but right now, with the music on my stand and, but it actually doesn't have to do with the music on my stand. I've got a list of 3 recordings that I listen to every day. One is, actually two are by Larry Combs. One was Larry Combs used to be the principal clarinet player at Chicago Symphony, and I was coaching with him when I lived in Chicago, and he was just a brilliant musician and a great teacher. And so every day this summer, I've been listening to a very early recording of Larry's playing the Nielsen Woodwind Quintet at Marlborough. Beautiful recording. And that's on A clarinet. It's a recording on. I listened to the second movement of that. He's playing his A clarinet early in his career. And then I listened to a recording he did with Chicago Symphony, the third movement of Mahler 3, and listened to what he sounded like there. It was several years later, it was 1984. So, listening to him there, which was, it's just, for me, it's like, I would love to sound like that. Just love to sound. And the third recording I've been listening to every day is a recording my teacher, another teacher of mine in Chicago, Robert Marcellus, of him playing Don Quixote, the opening of Don Quixote, just how his sound is there. And I listen to those every day. And then when I start with my 10 minutes of scales, since I've listened to that every day, that's the concept inside my head. Now, Sasha, you've been listening to some other recordings every day, you were saying.
Yeah, it's not as often. I wish it would be more disciplined like Chris. And it's also easier when you listen with somebody, when you share, oh my God, when you get together to listen to that, or, everybody's forwarding everybody recordings. And by all means do that, because, it's fun. My recordings that were very definitive were by my teacher, David Weber, and there is a CD of him and there are a couple orchestral recordings. Part of it seems that nostalgically for us, when we had the lessons, like Chris had the lesson with Mr. Marsalis, I had my 20-25 lessons with Mr. Weber, he demonstrated, and remembering that brings back memories. Sometimes you think about things you learned like 20-25 years ago in a lesson, I demonstrated. So there's that one particular place from a Glazanov seasons, that is the last track on Mr. Weber's recording, that he demonstrated many times, almost every day.
Such a beautiful track.
And it's a part of legato things. Let's see if I can demonstrate it. And every time he played it in the lesson, and he explained it, how we go to upper register, the hairpins that he used, and the phrasing. And it's amazing because it's in my ears from 25 years ago. And if you listen, there is a very direct way how specifically it was played. Or the opening of Shostakovich First Symphony. There is also a recording of Symphony of the Air when Mr. Weber played first clarinet. So here's the personal example that keeps me, I'm just getting excited just to think about it. There is a great Chicago Symphony recording with Leonard Bernstein, and Larry Combs sounds fantastic. Yeah. But there is a very difficult
I was actually at those concerts when they actually did the recording session. They were live.
So here's the example when we remember our teachers and our mentors, and there is that passage And Mr. Weber said, when you have a fast passage, don't try to rush it in right away. Ease into the first couple notes. So just having that trick gets you the consistency of it coming out. Do you see what I mean? So that's just an amazing thing. I haven't played it in a long time, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Impressive.
But also, that's part of, if you do it correctly, I just gave you one of the tricks of the trade. You have a fast passage, like somebody just played and asked me to coach them on an opening of Daphnis and Chloe for clarinet, right? And I have not played that. I play bass clarinet for a living. I coached a lot, but you don't really need to practice it. And right away, the person fell on his face and tried the second time. It was not very good. And one of the reasons because he tried to play fast, right? So it was, sorry, it's a beef like clarinet or professional coach. So what he tried to do was doing that. It sort of comes out, but not as good if you do the right thing. The lean, let's say on the first note, and recognize all the intervals. I hope you heard the difference, right? Please nod. Was the second time better? And I haven't been practicing that long. Here's the idea. If you know how to approach that, if you know how it's supposed to be done, and you put your work into that, here's a specific idea. You have a fast passage. I tell my students, maybe it's not completely appropriate, but I come from a different country, so I can get away with more stuff. It's like don't jump into that relationship, or don't too fast. You have to take your time, and you don't jump in a cold water right away. Maybe some of you like to do. The point is, it's still going to sound precise, but by playing few notes, just easing it at the beginning, all the time, you're going to nail it. And just being able to pick up this instrument and doing something that I've done 100 times and train myself correctly, that gives me that security. You see what I mean? So first you need to have a concept and remember what our teachers and people we like to play, do. Second, what I was saying, you need to know how to do it. You need to know how to do it. So you have to know the answers and seek those answers. And when it comes to exercises, you need to know how to get it. And from what I've learned in life, if you're looking, if you're seeking those answers, you'll find them. Like here, you already gave you. Here's a specific idea. You have fast passage. Never like jump right away. The same thing with your air. Don't just start pushing right away. Ease into it. It's like you're starting the car. You don't want to floor it, right? And just pressing the gas unless you're on a movie set, which I don't think they make those right now. But it's the same idea when you ease in and you have security and you have a better chance of nailing it, most of the time than others. So we got back to David Weber. Also, that's Harold Wright recordings, anything you hear, because we're talking about the concept of sound that shapes us, right? And a lot of what we do comes just what the sound is. I don't know how it comes through the Zoom. And we're also going to talk in our classes. I'll give you first tape called Clarinet comes from clarity, and how important it is to start the concept of sound from the clarity. Not just I want to play big or I want to play loud. You start from a clarity. If you can get a clear G, which is not that easy to do, then you can build from that note down. For instance, my lessons with David Weber, he always started with open G, and most of you in school, right, you tune to open G, probably not anymore, but in general, right? And there's a certain sound that you listen to that, the clarity, and it's not easy to do it. In our classes, we show 3 different fingerings, which you're gonna come back in the next class, find which one from open G that works for you, right? So you establish that. And from that, you build down and up. And in actually 2 minutes, I'm ready to go to work and play. So this is one of the examples how we need to know what we listen for, how do we achieve, and how we go. And Chris,
And it's sort of interesting how you're listening to, you said you were listening to the Harold Wright fairy tales
yeah,
a lot, you know, and it's interesting when I listen to that and I listen to Larry Combs's Marlboro Nielsen Quintet, those sounds are so similar because Larry was influenced by Harold Wright. So Sasha and I are listening to completely different recordings, but there are some similarities there, actually some big similarities. And that recording of the Glazanov is just one of my that Sasha was talking about of his teacher.
Symphony of the Air. And start writing stuff.
It's just one of my favorite recordings of any clarinet sound. Anyway,
By
it's
the
just
way,
gorgeous.
yeah. By the way, yeah, we are recording that so we can come back. So start for listening, and we're going to put it on the website later on. Larry Combs, principal, Chicago Symphony. Robert Marsalis, former principal, one of the most famous teachers, and Chris benefited from studying with him of the Cleveland Orchestra. Any recording from Cleveland Orchestra between 50s and 70s, absolutely magnificent. Every single one is going to show you what the best clarinet playing should be.
Yeah.
Every single one,
Yeah.
which is unparalleled, you know, in any regard. David Weber was specifically as a sound and continuation of French school of playing that we all benefited from. Remember, we need to know the history. How did we get here? Why did we play row studies to get in the All-State? Okay, we need to know what's the reason for that. Who came up with that? Why there is such a thing as Bonnat ligature? Who was Daniel Bonnat? She says it's not very difficult, we just dropping some names, but it's important for you to see the direction between the standards that have been established by our predecessors, going back now exactly 100 years, not that long ago.
And we feel very, very fortunate that we're part of that lineage. I mean,
that's one of the reasons we love to teach, because in some ways, those row studies, even though are the most difficult pieces of music, that being our foundation of our playing, just as it was before. So my teacher was only like generation away from Rome. So he studied in 30s and 40s, those 80s, with Bonnat, who was a direct student from that school. So that's why it's important. And my teacher used to say, it's like, well, I've heard it from the horse's mouth, you know, and it gives you better, like when you read it, like you really believe it because it's really convincing. And then, you know, Mr. Weber had all these famous students, you know, John Manassi is one of the most, you probably heard his recordings, and Todd Levy plays the melody, and Dan Gilbert teaches in Michigan. So like when you see 10 very famous people play the same warm-up that I did for, like, well, maybe I should do it because all those famous people, that's, you know, exactly what they did, and you know exactly how they got there. So I hope that helps. And now Chris is going to demonstrate his version of playing skills.
Yeah. So basically, I think it's good to not get in too much of a rut. What I do a lot with my students is try and get them sort of make sure they don't get in any rut. So changing it up a little bit. So I've actually changed up my own scales this summer, partly just because I wanted to present this for Houston Clarinet Camp this summer. I usually work out of the Yettel scale book, which is, you know, the reason I work out of there, it gets up into the extreme high register a little more than the Berriman and some other scale books. So I usually work out of Yettel, but I figured, well, I'm going to do something different. And I was doing this 10-minute scale thing with my buddy in the trumpet section. And so I thought, well, let's just get out the scales that we teach to, that we taught at Houston Clarinet Camp last summer. And I'll just do the same scales that we were teaching last summer. I used to do those back in junior high and high school. And, you know, then I went to different books. And so I said, okay, let me go back to the original book this summer. So what I'd like to present for you And it also will impact, for those of you that want to do some of the rest of our master classes this summer, and even some of the one-on-one Zooms with you, what we're going to suggest with that is that you need to submit something to us if you want a one-on-one with us. So you submit, about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes worth of recorded content on your iPhone, whatever. You send it to us. We look at it so we know where you're coming from individually. And what we'd like to do is the first few minutes of your tape, if you want to do this, we'd like you to put some of the Close scale. Now, hopefully all of you know what the Close scale sheet is. It's the scale sheet out of the, we'll do screen sharing once we're going to have a new production laptop for the master classes later in the month. This is just sort of our first outing, but we're going to have we can do screen sharing and also audio file sharing, where those recordings that we just talked about, you'll be able to, we'd be able to push a button and
show here. That would be good. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. So we'll have screen sharing and also audio file sharing, where the recordings we're talking about, you can hear what Larry Combs sounds like playing the Nielsen Quintet second movement. So, if you guys don't know what the Close scale sheet is, we'll go ahead and post it on the website after the class is done so you can see what it is. It's basically all the major and minor scales through most of the range on one sheet. There's nothing really extremely high altissimo. But what I want to present to you today is what I've been doing with them in the first 10 minutes of the day. And I'm not going to play all of them, but I'm just going to show you what I do is I go through this sheet. It takes about 4 minutes to go through the sheet, and I go through it 3 times. I go through it at a medium tempo, and then I go through it at a 10 notches slower tempo, and then I'll go at a fast tempo. So I go medium, slow, fast. I'm not really concerned about the fast. I don't really care about that. The fast is sort of more for me to think, if this were a phrase, am I making this as an exciting phrase that's smooth but also exciting? Now, you may or may not realize this, but the version that I think is the hardest, actually by far, is the slow. And when I did it yesterday, what I do is I start 84, 74, 94 is what I've been doing. Yesterday I did 74, 64, 84. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That's so basically, so I start out at 84 and just start out with the sheet. So I'll just demonstrate here. Hopefully my reed's not too dry. Like that at 84 on the metronome. Okay, now after I get through all that, I'm sort of not terribly winded, but it's a good warm-up. It's 4 minutes of playing your scales all the way through. Then I put it down to 74. Okay, so it's 10 beats slower. Now this gives my ear much more time to listen in between the notes. And I'm not going to have that luxury when I have it on 94. So this is the most important part of my scale practice right here, because it's harder to get that smoothness. And the other thing I would add is that the metronome's got to be on. The metronome keeps you honest, and it lets, if you don't have the metronome on, you can't tell where it's getting slightly imperceptibly faster or slower, and you can't fix that. The metronome, I can see exactly where I'm not even, and if it's not even, I stop and I go back and I make it even. I don't go on to the next scale until I play the scale before evenly. So this is 74 now. So that wasn't very even there on the beginning of the A minor. So I'm just gonna start over. Okay, and once again, I go through the whole page. Now, you'll notice I'm taking plenty of time, 5 or 6 beats on the metronome for a breath. I don't want to practice my scales if I don't have a good breath behind each scale. This is part of my warm-up. So I give myself plenty of time to get the best possible breath I can get. Now, what I did yesterday, I took it even down to 64. And that's even harder. You hear even more mistakes in your playing. I'll do that now and then we'll... Okay, so that's way harder than the 84. I hear way more things that I want to fix at that tempo than I didn't even hear those things at 84, but they're there in my fingers. And now I'm hearing them and now I can fix them. And like when I went back, when that A minor was sloppy 2 times ago, in my scale practice at home, I'll go back if it's not as smooth as I think it should be. Then this is probably the least important part, but I do this as well. At this time, I can't hear the legato between each note as much, but I've practiced good legato up to now. So here I'm just trying to think of momentum up to the top, momentum down, momentum up to the top and down. Almost like you would when you're singing a song or playing a phrase or a solo phrase in band or something. When you're playing a solo, you want to have, you know, feeling and shape and character and everything. So I'm thinking when I do my scales at 94, less about if they're perfectly even or not, but more if it's going up and down and up and like if there's some kind of musical feeling to it. Okay, so I can already hear, I can hear misses in there that aren't right, but I'm not really focusing on those as much. I'm not worried about mistakes. I'm not worried about squeaks. But what I was looking for there is that it was going somewhere. Just like when you play music in a phrase, you want to have an awareness that it's going somewhere. Because if you don't have an awareness it's going somewhere, the person listening to it is just going to get bored, okay, if you're not taking them somewhere. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So that's how I've been approaching my scales. And with our classes, if you want to do the one-on-one with us, all I would suggest is we'll post this page online if you don't have it. Most of you probably have it. And if you're going to submit 5 to 10 minutes to us, just 3 minutes to 4 minutes of this page. And it doesn't matter if you get through the whole page. And the other thing, a little tip I'll give you, you'll impress us if it's slower rather than faster.
Yeah.
The slower we'll be able to hear more what you need work on. Let me just add one more thing. And that is, after I'm done with this sheet, then I go to the chromatic in the close A. Then which is basically the same structure of this piece, but instead of playing scalar patterns, you're playing chromatic patterns from C up to high C, down to the low A, up to the high A, down to the low F. It's the same pattern, but just in chromatics. And then I turn the page and go to the thirds. And the scale sheet I do 3 times at 3 different tempos. The rest, I'll just do it whatever tempo I decide to practice at that day. And then I'll do the thirds. And then my favorite page is actually the diminished 7th page, which I do every day. And the diminished 7th page, I'll also take out at different tempos. I'll do it at 74, and then I'll do it at 64. I'm sorry, I'll do it at 84, and then at 74. So I'll do it at the multiple tempos, the diminished, because the diminished 7ths are so important. And for some, I just really enjoy playing them. You feel like you have a lot of technical prowess if you just, go through all the diminished. I don't know, at least I feel that way. But I enjoy practicing.
It's interesting that Chris mentioned diminished chords. I probably agree with him, but first of the example here, that just playing major scales, like most of the kids in Texas, remember when the scales were like 25% of your whole state audition. It doesn't happen anymore. But the point is, you need to practice major and minor scales. In our curriculum, you also play diminished chords that belong to minor scales, and you play dominant 7 chords that belong to major scales. So for some of you that might be like way over your head, this is aiming higher, right? We're not just playing scales like EOL requirement. We're always looking further. We challenge ourselves on a fundamental basis. So by the time you get to the etudes, and guess what? A lot of times there are minor scales and minor keys, and then kids don't know what to do with them. So you challenge that, it becomes part of your daily routine. So by the time you see it, you're not like completely shocked. It's like, what is this interval? There is diminished chord. And just like reading poetry, you read in the paragraphs, you don't read word by word. What is that note? Marking all these sharps and flats. The idea is that you recognize the patterns in music established by the scales, diminished chords, thirds, and doing it takes time, but it's paying your time forward. That's what it is. So the funny thing I wanted to share with you and ask yourself the question, there are only 2 types of people in this world. Some of them like diminished chords, and some of them like dominant 7 chords. Doesn't matter.
Are you a dominant 7 person?
No, I'm a diminished chord.
Okay, yeah.
But
for some reason, I'm definitely not a dominant 7 person. That's something that I'd
I've
have to push
met
myself to
you,
work.
and I don't want to make assumptions and generalizations, but ask yourself, just like there are 2 types of people, there are rushers and draggers. Have you ever asked yourself the question, which one of you? It's actually a very important question, because a lot of times we don't even know ourselves. There are tendencies, for instance, when we play loud, we rush. When we play slow, we slow down. We're human. Once you do that, you recognize there is nothing you should be ashamed of. Being aware of that, it's a huge advantage to you. So just knowing that's part of our class that we're going to do it, and we can hear in your playing. For instance, if you're a dragger, then you need to play with metronome, put it in the offbeats. We'll show you the different tricks how to practice to keep you moving, right? And I know even this room, some of my students, I know which one you are. Now, if you're a rusher, then you really need to be aware how you phrase and where you put some sort of brakes on yourself so you don't let it go. And I had many students that just had no control. They could play fast, but it was not control fast, which comes to the point, either you control your fingers or they control you. That's why what Chris just demonstrated was so significant. You see where I'm getting it not because you have to play, you have to eat vegetables, you're going to be successful. Your playing is like a beautiful flower that needs to be tended all the time. That was a great phrase of our teacher. You have to get it enough water, enough sun. You have to constantly cultivate it. It does not live on its own. If you let it go, it's going to be a bad garden. So this is that important. Cherish your play, nourish your play, give it a lot of nutrition, constantly support it, right? So by the time you need it, it's something that, it's very important.
And got to add one thing to that, and that's one of the things that we've done since the orchestra went dark and we're not playing now. I had Mahler 7 on my stand. I had Symphony Fantastique by Berlioz on my stand. We had some Beethoven Egmont on the stand. All that was on my stand because I had to take that whole stack and just put it aside because none of that was going to happen. But you guys have the same opportunity I had at that point, and that opportunity was immensely liberating for me. I was able then to put a stack of music of just stuff I wanted to play on my stand. And I've not had that, I think, since I can't remember any time I've had that. Like, even before I was younger than y'all, I don't think I've ever had that. I've always had, when I was your age, I had clarinet lessons and youth orchestra concerts and, rep coming up. And I always had stuff on my stand that other people would tell me, you got to do this, this, and this. This was the first time in my life where I've been able to put on my stand just exactly what I wanted to work on. So I went through my music cabinet and I just put stuff up on my stand that I've always wanted to work on. There's a great John Williams piece that he wrote for what was the name of the movie? The airplane movie with Tom Hanks and
not Passenger.
The Terminal. The Terminal.
Yeah.
So that movie has a beautiful clarinet solo in it that we sometimes do at the symphony, and we've done a few times. I've never played principal on it. I've always played second clarinet on it. But I got the principal part out for that, and I said, well, I want to learn that. And there would usually be no circumstance where I would need to learn that or be asked. But I said, well, I want to play that. It's a really cool piece. So, I sat down with that for 2 weeks and I learned it. And, it was fun to get to do that. And there's other pieces of chamber music that I haven't done for a while. I put a piece by Bartok up that I haven't done for a while. I put the Nielsen Quintet up because I was listening to Larry Combs play the Nielsen. I just thought, I just want to sound like that. Put the Nielsen part up on the stand. But everything on my stand at home is what I want to play right now. Now, I'm smart in that I try and put a good combination of stuff so I'll get the most out of my time. But I'm able to tailor to my enjoyment. So you guys have that same option right now and take advantage of it. You probably don't have band directors throwing you a ton of repertoire right this second. So you can actually go out after this masterclass today and figure out, what do I want to play? What do I want to play over the next 2 weeks? I hope all of you will redouble your efforts with your scales, because that, I think, is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself this summer. But after you commit to your scales, I would highly recommend figure out what you want to play, stick that on your stand, and that can be your treat after the scales, learning something that you want to play. I have a student who got to play with his band. In fact, I wonder if Brandon's here. Now is Brandon out there? But I have a student who earlier in the season this year, he put up a piece called Danseau No. 2 by Marquette. Great clarinet solo, and I think his band was doing a feature. He put that up on his stand, and it's like, oh yeah, this would be something I put up on my stand. This is fun to play. You can put whatever's on your stand that's fun to play, that motivates you, and that's gonna be even better for you guys this summer. You can choose what you want to play, and with the internet, you can go out and find whatever you want and be able to do it. And if you can't get the music, listen to it and figure it out on your own.
With my students, I don't give them that much choices. Sorry. They can have what Chris is having as a present, but what I recommend them doing, and what I make them do, is 8 measures of 2 8 right? We have a guest waiting.
We have a.
So
yeah.
What I do, also it's kind of a fun game for Texas students. that each week 8 measures of agent. That might be your agent that you're going to audition for All Star or Team A. So that motivates them and to do it on their own without me explaining how to do. 8 measures of slow agent, 8 measures of fast agent. Next day, next lesson we do another 8 measures. Not the whole thing. You don't need to like get it perfect, but to give an autonomy so you independently take responsibility for your own study, and this is what you do. That's just one of the examples. That's I basically don't leave my students. I learn students going to do the less, not the less. If you tell them more, then they will do more. So now
we have a very special guest who just entered the room. We need to figure out on Zoom where he is, but this.
Oh, here's Lynn.
Hey, Lynn. Now we need to unmute.
Unmute.
How do you do that?
Press there.
Oh.
It says unmute. Yeah. That's
Hello.
It.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey,
Oh, this is so exciting to see you. Wow.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Oh, hi. How are
Now,
you?
can everybody else hear Lynn? Raise your hand if you're able to hear Lynn. Okay, Joe can hear Lynn. Ethan can hear Lynn. Beautiful. Okay, great. Lynn, everyone can hear you. Wonderful to see you. How are you doing?
Great. I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Very good. Very good. We've had a class for about an hour now, and we told everybody that we had a special guest, the principal clarinet player from the National Symphony. And Lynn used to play in the section with us at Houston Symphony for about a year. And then he went out and got his job he got a job in Baltimore and then National Symphony. And now he's the principal clarinetist of the National Symphony. So Lynn, we are thrilled to have you and to introduce you to our students. And we wanted to ask you a few questions about what you've been doing to stay in shape on the clarinet, stay in shape just in general in life, and how you you may have not had any problem with motivation. We notice it with our students. About 65% of them from March till now have run into some situations or some feelings that they're having a hard time motivating themselves practicing. About 65% of them felt that they were having a hard time motivating themselves practicing. Lynn, knowing you might not have any problem motivating yourself for practicing at all. I know I ran into a little bit of a hard time motivating myself. But tell us, number one, if you, just how have you been staying in shape? What have you been doing?
Well, in the beginning of this COVID, I did relax, maybe a little bit too much. But this a Chinese saying that life is like a boat sailing against the current. You either go ahead, go forward, or fall behind. So now I'm trying to get back to work. Since all the concerts are canceled this season, I don't need to learn different repertoire every week. So now I'm spending more time to work on my fundamentals.
Fundamental, okay. Yeah, we've actually been spending this class really trying to, I think, stress to our students how important scales are. So can you talk about what you've been doing with we'd love to hear about all your fundamentals, but also could you talk about scales in addition to talking about fundamentals?
Sure. I learn fundamentals, scales, and also I try to improve my tonality. I personally pay a great attention to tonality and articulations, and to me, it just says a lot about a person's playing. I mean, it's not just about speed. Of course, some people can tone more rapidly than others. More focus on the quality than the speed. So I would practice toning on a single note, and also scales and arpeggio. So not just scales, but also a single note on an arpeggio, trying to work on both the quality of articulation, the speed of articulation, and also the coordination between the fingers and the tongue. Yeah.
With your articulation fundamental exercises, do you use the metronome with those?
Oh yeah, always.
Okay, so listen to that, everybody. Lin, when he's doing his articulation, he's got to have the metronome on. And Lin, why do you have the metronome on?
Why do I have?
For the articulation. Tell us why. What about
consistency?
Yeah.
Consistency.
You hear more, right? You hear when you hear if it goes out a little. We were talking about scales here, and I was trying to tell we were trying to tell the students, definitely do your scales with the metronome, because then you can hear more where you're not perfect, or where it's not as even.
That's right. Yeah.
So you have your which exercises do you do first? Your scale exercises, your articulation exercises, or your tone exercises?
You mean book? I just play scales. I don't really practice scale book. I don't have those. I just work on scales with metronome. Very simple.
Okay, so you always have your metronome on during your scales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you doing, like, for example, do you like focus on one key for a while, or are you doing all your scales every day?
Not all scales every day.
Okay, so you're focusing. You're choosing to focus on something, right?
Yes, I pick a few scales, few keys.
Few keys.
Yeah, I always start with the C major because that's just the easiest one, and also I can just pay more attention on my articulation, and that is actually what I'm really focusing on. I pay a lot of attention to the tongue. And I realized once my tongue is getting better, my legato playing also improves. Yes, when I was young, lots of scales, arpeggios, all the keys, majors, minors, yeah.
Yeah. And do you find yourself going to the arpeggios as much now, or are you more concerned just with the scales, legato, and articulated?
All of them.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
Excellent.
And besides practicing these fundamentals, I'm also learning, trying to learn the circular breathing these days.
Oh wow! Very impressive.
It's not. I would say it's not necessary technique we should have. I mean, certainly. You do not need to know how to circular breathe or double tongue in order to win an audition. But still, I think it can be useful. It can be a useful tool. So, and it's a great time to learn something like this. Yeah.
What else do you have up on your music stand this past week or so? What else is on your music stand?
There's some my favorite etude books. I like Rose 32 and 40.
Rose 32 is up there, okay.
40 and 40. I don't learn every one of them. I pick some of my favorites. I like to learn and relearn, and also Zhang. Yeah. That's
the 18 or the 16?
I think the 18. I'm not sure. I only have one.
Yeah. Right. Very good. So yeah, some etudes up. Do you have any repertoire up on the stand or anything like that?
Currently I'm working on a chamber music concert. Me and my friends are trying to play a concert next month, and we're trying to broadcast, do a live broadcast over the internet.
Will you all be in the same room?
Yeah, with distance, of course.
Good.
Yeah,
And what's the repertoire? Or can you not say?
Yes, it's repertoire. It's composers from from different places in the world. We have Jacqueline Fontaine, I think Belgian composer, and Darius Mule, French composer. Jenny Brandon, American composer, and Erwin Schorhoff, Czech composer. So it will be a big variety. Yeah.
That sounds great. And you'll have to let us know when the live stream will be, so we can direct all of our students to sign in the live stream so they can see you play live, because Lin is just a spectacular clarinet player and musician.
Sure.
Yeah.
He added a very small clip of Lin recently playing, so watch it on our Facebook page, and just follow his information. And also to mention for students in Houston area, you were probably in middle school at that point, but Lin also won I'm a Hawk competition. What year was it, Lin?
2014.
2014, playing Weber's second clarinet concerto, which was really spectacular.
It was awesome.
Yeah, spectacular. So for those of you guys playing, I don't know if there's a recording. That's actually one of the best Weber second clarinet I've heard, especially live.
Yeah.
For sure. So here's the example. See, we promised we did not coordinate with Lin what we're gonna say, but it's one of the things that we all learn from our teaching, especially when you play more than one person. If you hear the same story from 2 or 3 professionals, that tells you something, right? That means there is something there that we all do, and it got us to the positions where we are, which is very difficult to get and beat other, sometimes up to 100 people. That's what it comes down. Just like for you guys, I didn't want to say kids, you beat a couple hundred instrumentalists to get into All-State. It's equally competitive. And in our teaching, what I've been doing for the past 20 years, and the concept that we created in Clarinet Camp a year ago, some of you were there just a year ago. That's pretty.
We see a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah. The idea is, it's basically what we do. We just put the same standards as what we play to you. We don't dumb it down. We found a way to explain them to you things. But what Lin is playing row studies. What's on my stand? 40 row studies.
Yeah.
What you're going to be playing in a different region band book, you're going to be playing one of those ages. So it's not that different that tradition we were talking about from a French school of playing that we were fortunate to study with descendants of that, sometimes only in 2 generations. That's passing on you. It's not that different what we do. We have more experience than what you do. Some of you are more talented than us. We just have the combination, and I would like to keep telling and just give you a few ideas about what the successful combination is. That I just heard that phrase from another friend of ours, and it just made a lot of sense that you want to ask yourselves. It's a sort of a pyramid or triangle of 3 things that need to come together: your natural talent, your work ethic, and finally your information, which could be a broad subject. And basically, every successful person we're talking about, your level getting an All-State or us winning our jobs, you have to get those 3 in line. If one of them is missing, for instance, with me, it was information. I was always talented since I was a teenager. I won competitions and I always practiced a lot, but I was walking in circles until I got the correct information to actually win an orchestral job. Some other people have right information and they have talent, which we see a lot. And they get spoiled because they can write on that talent, but they don't practice enough. And, somebody wanted to come in. So that example, very rare that you have great information and you have a great work ethic, but the only thing is a lack of natural talent. I've seen maybe less than 5%.
Yeah, less than 5%.
I mean, you have something really not work, but that's a very rare combination, just you living in that.
Yeah.
And I've never discouraged any student. I've never personally in the 25 years I taught in Texas. I've never seen that. Usually it's the information and work ethic, which could be divided by motivation. Specifically, I had a Spencer Curtin, Shirley Holston, you might remember him. It was a different Spencer in Shirley's Side Creek High School. In his senior year, he made an all-state and he actually made first chair. Now, he auditioned 3 years before and he did not even make state. So it took his motivation that it happens a lot. Oh, surely you remember the Kayla Wengler. That was a good example, right? For you know, talented, had your own bass clarinet, which actually used in Houston Symphony first. You know, was kind of flaky. You know, she was talented, she was good, but it was not until senior year that she really got her act together. And that, once you get it, for teachers, this is price. When we don't have to motivate you, when you have, all we need to do is just to give you information. There is no bigger reward for us, right? But without that work ethic and without that motivation, it's very difficult. We cannot do all the work for you. So ask yourself a question: which category do you belong to? And from what I'm saying, it exists in all levels. Our professional level, getting the job, holding on to the job, playing the job after 5-10 years, very challenging. And that's why we want to show we're not that different from you. We're older, we're more experienced, but we all go through the same phases. And our style of teaching is just like, we're so grateful to our teachers. We're so grateful we won our jobs. Most people don't. And that's why we feel that great opportunity to share it on your level. I don't care what the motivation is. I teach some adult students as well. It doesn't matter as long as you can share that situation and help them to get where they want to get. So that's the purpose of our class.
Right. Can we ask Lynn one more question about Lynn? Sasha and I know that your work ethic is just blows us away. Your work ethic is spectacular, and your talent is too. Tell us about your motivation during, you know, once February, March, when the orchestras stopped playing. Did you battle with motivation at all, or was your motivation all set to go? You know, did it bounce at all, or, and if it did bounce, how did you deal with getting your motivation back? I'm sorry, Lynn, you're muted. I'm sorry. Wait, hold on a second. Sorry. Yeah, I need here. 1 second, Lynn.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Sorry, Lynn. You heard my question. Did you? Did you hear my question?
Yes, I heard your question.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, did you ever have to like find a new way to motivate yourself through all this, or not?
One of the things I like to do is I love to listen to music on Spotify and watch other people playing on YouTube and trying to get inspired from them. I think what really helped me succeed is just I love listening to other great musicians playing, and trying to learn from them. I like to play for people. You know, when I was working with Houston Symphony, I played for two of you many times. That's and I learned a lot from you guys. I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, that's how I keep my motivation. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. That's great.
That's really cool too.
Has there been anything you've been listening to lately that you want to share with anyone? Anything specific you've listened to?
And we're gonna put it on the
website. These days I'm just trying to learn the new piece, the chamber music. Chamber music concert I'm trying to have. But when I was young kid, I listened to a lot of Sabine Meyer's recording. I grew up listening to her recording. And, I really like her playing. That's actually my favorite Mozart concerto recording is her recording.
Sabine Meyer's.
Sabine Meyer.
Yeah.
It's actually
Beautiful
available on
recording.
YouTube. On YouTube. And many times when I listen to the second movement, it just put tears in my eyes. It's so touching, and that's what really inspired me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sabine Meyer's second movement of the Mozart.
Yes, and that's my favorite recording.
That's awesome. That's a great story. That's a great story. Wow.
Thanks for sharing that, Lin.
Yeah.
And hopefully for you guys, it's going to be inspirational to see how we progress, what we do. It's, the oral concept is always very important. People that we emulate, people that we admire, people that, sometimes I don't feel like practicing, and I put in a recording, and it just puts me in that mode.
It makes you want to put a reed in your mouth and get the reed wet and put the clarinet together. So really use that. You can find all these, this recording Lin's talking about Sabine Meyer playing the Mozart Concerto. It's just gorgeous, just absolutely gorgeous. So that could motivate you to get your clarinet out. Even if you're doing it just to play the first 4 bars of the second movement of the Mozart. I want to sound like that recording this moment, If it gets your clarinet together, that's a good step in the right direction.
And I haven't listened in a while, so that's actually
I can go listen when I get home because I haven't listened in a while. It's on LP. I've got the old vinyl LP of that.
That's funny. When I was growing up in the Soviet Union, I was a teenager. One of the first recordings was to a Ravel clarinet concertos.
Yeah.
And she was in her 20s at that time. So, those the things now you guys have such an abundance of recordings, and I think it can be actually very confusing because there's so much stuff out there and it's hard to tell what's good or not. That's why I use the discretion of your teachers, and because it's hard to get influence just because it's out there and somebody paid money to record it, so it doesn't mean it's good. So that could be a little bit tricky. Just like further on, you learn, choose the people you play for by reputation, because a lot of times those people could not be motivational. There might be actually on the other side. There's a lot of really good players out there. Some of them cannot really explain what they do. But you can always learn by the live music. That's why we're in such an unusual situation now, and hopefully it will change in a few months. At least here in Texas, it will. Hopefully in Washington, D.C., where Lin is, it probably will take a little bit longer. It's been difficult for all of us. We've been basically muted on Zoom. We tried to talk, and we cannot express what we've been doing, what we've been, I don't know, even say taken for granted, and it's just something, this is part of your life. This is part of your eating, breathing.
I think what it comes down to, I think, I would guess Sasha and I feel this way. I would imagine a lot of you feel this way as well. I find some of my purpose actually in the clarinet. Part of the purpose for Chris Schubert being around is the clarinet. Not all the purpose. I mean, I'm a dad. I've got 2 daughters. That's probably my biggest purpose. But I have realized through this COVID-19, when it's closed down all the concert halls, I realized, wow, I've actually got a fair amount of my purpose sort of tied up in the clarinet. And it makes me really miss not being able to share that purpose, not being able to go and make music on stage. And I think I've just found that, clarinet's a big part of me. And if I'm not gonna be able to do something on stage down at Jones Hall, I've got to find something at home where I can express that purpose. Last night, I was at home and I had my daughters take my iPhone out and record me in the living room from the stairs on top playing this piece from the Terminal, just because I wanted to have a performance. And so they indulged me, and I don't know how much they got out of it, but for me, it was actually a big deal having my daughter go up on the landing, filming down in my living room, and playing through like it was a performance of the John Williams Terminal. It felt sort of like a performance, and it was sort of exhilarating. And if you guys are finding you're missing that, find some ways at home where you could do something as simple as asking your brother or sister, your mom or dad, to do something like that, it'll be a good feeling. I mean, you want to, you know, prepare something and then make a performance even at home for those around you.
Don't make it the other way around. I remember when I was a kid, and during like the holidays, they tried to make me play for their friends. Have you, this has ever happened to you? I hate it. You know, they're celebrating and they put me like a bear on a festival, like you know, go play something and take a request. But as long as it comes from you, I think that's important. That's actually one of the reasons I stuck with music. I tried so many different things, so many sports. And the only reason I played music, I had very good, great aunt who was a piano teacher. But main reason because my parents did not make me practice.
Yeah, mine never made. With my parents, it was always, all they cared about was straight A's in school. That's all they cared about. And they could care. I mean, they provided me, instruments and lessons and stuff like that. But they didn't care about any of that. They just wanted the straight A's in school. But for me, it's like rush home, get the homework done so I could practice all night. That's how I felt. And my parents never had to.
As you can see, that's interesting, and everybody has their personal.
How about you, Lin? What were you like as a kid at that point? Were your parents very trying to get you to practice, or was that all self-motivation?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I really enjoy playing the music. I remember when I was young, I would get up very early, even earlier than my parents. I would get up at like 7 and practice before going to school.
Wow.
That's yeah. And right now if I think back, it's very impossible. It's almost impossible, how
That's a great story. I've never done it.
I remember a neighbor would call my parents, say, "Can you tell your son not to practice? It's a little bit too early."
Oh my, really? That's a great story. Wow.
Yeah.
Not to practice. What did your parents say?
I don't know where I got that motivation. I just very enjoying play the clarinet at a young age. Yeah. And my parents never pushed me. Yeah.
That's very inspirational. So you see, when you hear stories like that, that also shows you why Lin is so successful. They see that's where their work ethic comes in, and among many other things. Now we have 2 minutes before we need to go because Chris needs to go and pick up his daughters. And the time went by. We had more topics we wanted to discuss. But right now, if you can send us a quick message and see how many of you would like to continue and see that it's going to be beneficial for you, we'll start actually taking weekly classes, so at least give like 2 weeks in a row, starting Tuesday, June 30th, and do an hour and a half classes with specific fundamentals, less introduction and talking, but specific demonstrations. Like I just want to talk about high notes and how we get like over upper, like specific topics that I think is going to be beneficial to everybody. And if you can shoot us a quick text over the chat, if you would like to do it, and please share that information with the other students that might be interested, friends you had, because we want to reach out and see. It takes us some time and resources to get it. When we play, we had 5 successful classes throughout last year in different areas when we were hosted by Cy-Fair School and
Dawson High School.
You got 25, 27 students
there. Oak Ridge.
So that was organized for us. Right now, we have to do it ourselves. We just want to see what the interest, and I think it's going to be important, especially before you guys come back to school. Some people actually go to college, and that's also an important part to stay motivated. Shoot us a line.
And
look for our information. But specifically, we're going to have next class on June 30th, and that also include the option, besides the payment, which is going to be very minimal, the opportunity to play through YouTube and make us recording and have opportunity to critique on a personal level, because that format doesn't really give us an opportunity for everybody to play. That's why we didn't really ask other people to play. It would not be fair. When we teach the class, everybody gets a chance to play. But, you know, we had 47 people. That's really great.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we had even more than that.
So
Did it get up to 50?
whatever questions you have, please send us. Thanks so much for coming. Lynn, this has been great.
Yes, Lynn, this has been such a pleasure.
For us too.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And please send us the information for your streaming recital, and we'll share that on our Houston Clarinet Camp website, so all the students here today can tune into your concert and hear you play in concert. That would be great. Thank you so much for joining us, Lynn.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Good to see everybody.
And what we'll do is we'll if you can let us know the interest level. We're thinking about presenting just weekly classes at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays, and we believe the
maybe 12. I mean, 11 probably better if it doesn't cut into lunchtime.
Yeah. So if there's interest, we'll do them every week. If we see the interest, we'll do them every week. So let us know if you'd like to work with these on a weekly basis, and we'll post all of the information to sign up for the classes on our website at HoustonClarinetCamp.com. And if you haven't already liked our YouTube page, it's Houston Clarinet Camp on YouTube.
And subscribe to it.
And subscribe, yeah, not like, subscribe. If you could subscribe to that, then we'll actually have that as a resource to reach you as well once we get over 100 subscribers. So it's Houston Clarinet Camp on YouTube. It's HoustonClarinetCamp.com for our website. And we just feel very, very fortunate that you guys joined us today. We hope you got a lot out of it. And we love teaching you guys. And I'd say the most important thing is that you guys make sure you're getting in every week with your private teacher. That's probably the most important thing you can do for yourself this summer, is continue that relationship with your private teachers so that they know you're playing, you know, intimately, and they know how to guide you, and just make sure you're keeping up with your private teachers this summer as well.
And the hard times will pass. And you guys young, you know, you don't have to feed your families yet. It will pass. You know, there is a light at the end of a tunnel, and at least in Texas, you know, we have some positive news. The Houston Symphony hopefully will start playing and streaming things. It's been a long time for everybody. I'm sure everybody's been affected. And I'm very impressed actually by young generation. I'm not just saying that. Some of my students see them actually, you know, tolerating that and being active, and that's actually a really encouraging sign of humanity, that it is possible to get through and get motivated. And that's the last thing. This is your investment, right? It's your investment. Do it now. When the time's going to get better, maybe it will be another month, maybe even less. But your investment, those 10,000 hours, you're going to be way on that. So we hope to give you more encouragement, information, and with the class happens, there's going to be specific assignments that we're going to do. So thanks for making it successful and paying attention and being there and seeing a lot of familiar faces.
Yes,
and the teachers, thanks for doing.
Thanks for the teachers who joined us today too. Yeah, we appreciate it.
So hopefully that we all share information. We learn from everybody, from ourselves. Lynn played for us. We played for him. We played for each other.
Yeah.
Actually, we do the equipment test.
Yes.
It's a whole different story.
That's another whole web class.
We'll go. Anyway, everybody stay safe.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you in the future.
Good to see everybody. Take care.